No slammed door, no secret showdown, no whispered palace ambush can match the force of something quieter. A mother standing beside her daughter while the entire world stares. That is the real story here, and it is far more revealing than the feverish royal rumor cycle. In the modern monarchy, the most decisive acts are often the least theatrical. They happen in kitchens, hospital waiting rooms, school runs, and private phone calls. They happen when cameras are gone and headlines are still forming. And when you look carefully at the recent storms around Catherine, Princess of Wales, one figure keeps emerging at the edge of the frame with remarkable consistency: Carole Middleton. For years, Carole was treated in parts of the British press as a background character in a larger fairy tale, the practical Berkshire mother who raised a future queen and somehow managed not to look overwhelmed by the machinery of class, protocol, and global scrutiny. Yet, the official biography of Catherine on the royal household website makes something plain from the beginning. Catherine was born to Michael and Carole Middleton in Reading in 1982, grew up in a close family, spent part of her childhood in Jordan, then returned to Berkshire before school, university, marriage, and eventually royal duty. The woman who is now Princess of Wales did not emerge from nowhere. She emerged from a stable family structure, and Carole was part of the architecture of that stability. The royal household. That point matters because royal history is often told as if bloodline alone explains resilience. It does not. Writers who have spent years studying the monarchy understand this. Tina Brown, in the Palace Papers, wrote about the House of Windsor as an institution forever managing image, hierarchy, anxiety, and reinvention. Sally Bedell Smith, across her royal biographies, has long examined how personal discipline and family structure shape public monarchy. Robert Jobson, whose 2024 book Catherine, The Princess of Wales, places Catherine within the long arc of the modern crown, belongs to that same tradition of observing not just glamour, but endurance. What these writers share is an understanding that the monarchy survives not only through ceremony, but through the invisible emotional labor performed around it. When Catherine revealed in March 2024 that tests after abdominal surgery had found cancer, and that she was in the early stages of preventative chemotherapy, the statement reshaped months of speculation in an instant. In the video message carried by the BBC, Catherine described the diagnosis as a huge shock after an incredibly tough couple of months. She said she and William had been doing everything possible to process the news privately for the sake of their young family, and to explain it to George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way that was appropriate for them. Those are not the words of a symbol. They are the words of a mother trying to hold a family together under historic scrutiny. BBC News. Once you understand that, the role of Carole Middleton stops looking decorative and starts looking essential. The public sees balconies, carriage processions, hospital arrivals, and polished photographs. What the public does not see is the intimate scaffolding required to keep a family functioning when illness enters the center of national attention. Meals still have to be made. Children still have to be reassured. Routines still have to be protected. Fear still has to be absorbed somewhere. A daughter who is known across the world as the Princess of Wales may, in private, still need what daughters have always needed when life turns frightening: the steadiness of the person who first taught them how to feel safe. This is where sensational storytelling so often misses the deeper truth. The real drama in royal life is rarely a cinematic confrontation between obvious enemies. More often, it is a contest between competing systems of care. One system is institutional, formal, remote, and heavily managed. The other is familial, repetitive, and rooted in ordinary acts. School pickups, quiet reassurance, a hand on the shoulder at the right moment, the refusal to let a frightened child feel the full force of adult panic. Carole Middleton matters because she belongs to that second system, and Catherine's public composure makes far more sense when you remember the private structure beneath it. The mythology around Catherine has often focused on poise, restraint, and suitability. Those qualities are real, but they were not created by a tiara. The royal household's own account of her early life shows an upbringing defined by movement, discipline, and education, from Berkshire to Amman and back again, then onward to Marlborough and St. Andrews. Stability was not accidental. It was built. The royal household. That helps explain why Catherine has frequently appeared to understand something fundamental about royal survival. That dignity is not the absence of pressure, but a method of containing it. In this sense, Carole's influence may be less about public intervention and more about inheritance of temperament. The monarchy rewards those who can absorb chaos without publicly disintegrating. But no adult develops that capacity in a vacuum. It is learned somewhere, usually long before the world begins applauding it. When observers describe Catherine as measured, protective, and instinctively calm with children, they may also be describing the values of the home that shaped her. Princess Charlotte's official profile is revealing in its own quiet way. It notes her birth in 2015, her place as the second child of the Prince and Princess of Wales, her role as third in line to the throne, her early overseas tour to Canada, and the start of school at Thomas's Battersea in 2019. The page is brief, formal, and careful, as royal profiles tend to be, but beneath the institutional language is a child growing up in the same paradox that defines modern royalty: extraordinary visibility paired with intense parental protection. The royal household. That is one reason any narrative involving Catherine, Carole, and Charlotte attracts such intense interest. Audiences sense that the struggle is not simply about rank. It is about inheritance in a deeper sense. What kind of emotional world is being passed down to the next generation? What kind of shield surrounds a child who is expected to embody continuity before she is old enough to understand the word, and who, in moments of family stress, becomes the guardian of that shield? Official institutions can protect schedules and appearances. Families protect inner weather. The tabloids and the algorithmic rumor economy thrive on confrontation because confrontation is easy to package. It gives every story a villain, a victim, and a moment of apparent revelation. But serious royal coverage has always worked differently. Sean Coughlan at the BBC, for example, did not describe Catherine's illness through melodrama. He described what was confirmed: surgery, diagnosis, treatment, privacy, and the challenge of telling 3 young children that their mother was ill while the world speculated around them. That is what credible reporting looks like. It narrows, rather than inflates, the story. BBC News. By contrast, the loudest corners of the internet turn absence into conspiracy and affection into factional warfare. Every glance becomes coded. Every relative becomes either mastermind or outcast. Every ordinary family support system is reimagined as a political bloc. Carole Middleton's composure in public is then read as strategy, when it may simply be the posture of a woman who understands that panic feeds the machine. In that sense, her silence can be interpreted not as passivity, but as resistance. Not every battle is won by speaking first. Some are won by refusing to perform crisis for an audience that profits from it. This is why the idea of Carole as Catherine's quiet shield remains so compelling. A shield is not always visible. It does not need applause. It does not announce itself each time it does its job. Sometimes it is simply the barrier between a family and collapse. And the most effective shields often look unimpressive from a distance, because their power lies in repetition rather than spectacle. Showing up, staying calm, helping children maintain routine, offering Catherine the one luxury royalty seldom receives in full, a space where she is not primarily a symbol, but a daughter. There is also a class dimension to all of this that royal observers have noted for years. Carole Middleton has long occupied an unusual place in the royal imagination because she challenges inherited assumptions about who belongs near the center of monarchy. She is not aristocratic in the old sense, and yet her daughter stands at the heart of the future crown. That has always made some commentators uneasy, while others have seen in the Middleton family a model of the monarchy's adaptation to modern Britain. The tension matters because it explains why Carole can be underestimated. Institutions often fail to recognize the strength of people who do not speak their language, even when those people are holding the family together. It is also important to separate verified fact from entertaining fiction. There is no credible public evidence for the kind of explosive private confrontation, so often recycled in viral royal scripts. What is documented is different, and, in many ways, more interesting. Catherine faced major surgery and cancer treatment. She asked for privacy. The king and queen were informed. The king expressed pride in her courage. William remained by her side, and throughout the broader public conversation, Carole Middleton was persistently discussed as part of Catherine's support system, not because of palace theatrics, but because family support is the obvious and human response to crisis. BBC News. That reality can seem almost too restrained for internet storytelling, but restraint is part of the truth. The royal family is not a television plot that advances through one explosive reveal after another. It is an institution built on delay, concealment, ritual, and controlled disclosure. The people around it learn to survive by mastering endurance. In that landscape, the person who can lower the emotional temperature of a room may matter more than the person who can dominate it. Carole Middleton's perceived strength lies precisely there. Even Catherine's approach to public life before her illness hints at this inheritance. Her work has often focused on early childhood, mental health, and the formative conditions that shape later life. These are not random themes. They suggest a worldview that takes home life seriously, not as sentimental backdrop, but as the foundation from which every later challenge is faced. The royal household describes her charitable emphasis on early childhood and mental health in clear terms. That focus feels even more resonant when one considers how much Catherine's own resilience may rest on the continuity of the family that raised her. The royal household. So when people search for a dramatic story about Catherine's mother supposedly crushing some palace enemy, they may be searching in the wrong register. The more revealing story is not about one spectacular victory. It is about durability. It is about the kind of maternal presence that does not need a title to be consequential. It is about a woman who appears again and again, not in the center of the official portrait, but close enough to help hold the frame together when the pressure begins to crack it. Another reason this quieter interpretation deserves attention is that it aligns with how the Wales family has generally handled the visibility of their children. Publicly, George, Charlotte, and Louis are introduced on carefully controlled terms, whether in birthday photographs, major ceremonial appearances, or brief glimpses tied to national occasions. Privately, the pattern has always suggested an effort to give them as ordinary a childhood as possible within impossible circumstances. That balance requires more than security planning. It requires a dependable family network. The official record tells us when Charlotte was born, when she toured Canada, and when she started school. What it cannot fully capture is the constant labor involved in protecting a child who is both a little girl and a constitutional figure before adolescence. The royal household. Anyone who has watched Catherine with her children in public can see how instinctive her protective attention appears. She crouches to their eye level, corrects them gently, keeps physical closeness without obvious display, and preserves a sense of order in environments designed to overwhelm adults. Those gestures feel polished because they have been repeated, but they also feel maternal in a way that cannot be faked for decades. If that instinct for emotional calibration was shaped at home, then Carole Middleton's influence is not a side note to the royal story. It is part of the story's emotional grammar that may also explain why the figure of Carole attracts such intense projection. To admirers, she represents grounded competence inside a world prone to abstraction. To critics, she can seem too composed, too strategic, too comfortable near power. But those readings often tell us more about public hunger for archetypes than about the woman herself. The modern royal ecosystem reduces people quickly. Someone becomes the schemer, the savior, the exile, the rival, the saint. Real life is seldom that neat. The mother of a future queen may simply be a mother who knows when to stay silent, when to arrive, and when to help her daughter survive a season that would break many people. What also stands out in this broader picture is the contrast between official language and emotional reality. Royal statements are often formal to the point of austerity. They speak of engagements, patronages, treatment, duty, and appreciation. The BBC report on Catherine's diagnosis likewise stayed close to confirmed information and quoted her own words carefully. Yet between those lines, any parent can hear the magnitude of what she was really describing. The effort to absorb fear without transmitting all of it to children. The discipline required to plan explanations. The decision to appear on camera only after the family was ready. That is not weakness. It is controlled courage. BBC News. The presence of Carole in that unseen chapter matters because illness often collapses status into basics. It does not matter how many titles appear on a Christmas card if someone needs help with school logistics, meals, transportation, emotional reassurance, or simply the permission to rest. In those moments, the oldest hierarchy returns. Not court rank, not constitutional precedence. Human trust. Who can come into the house without making things heavier? Who can be around children without forcing performance? Who can witness pain without turning it into narrative? The answer, very often, is family. Royal correspondents have long understood that the House of Windsor depends on these hidden support systems, even when it rarely advertises them. The public sees the front stage. Researchers and seasoned writers tend to notice the backstage disciplines that make the front stage possible. That is why books by Brown, Bedell Smith, and Jobson retain value even when readers disagree with details or tone. They keep returning to the same core insight. Monarchy may look like pageantry from a distance, but up close it is made of personalities, loyalties, habits, slights, and